good, champ?
Hey, I'm good. How you feeling today?
I'm blessed, man. I can't complain. Ready to get this knowledge, man. I'm ready to find out who my landlord is.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I'm happy to be here. I know you guys have been going hard the last couple of days, and so shout out to everybody here that's still plugging in.
Yes, sir. All right, I'm gonna let you take over.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen here. But before I even hop in, I just want to say cheers to all of you guys for tagging along this long. I got you guys for about 45 minutes here. So I'm going to make sure that you guys leave with some good gems. Again, my name is Ofo Ezeugwu, and I'm very happy to be here today. Shout out to the team at Thanksgiving for making this happen. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can follow along with me here. Awesome. I think I'm all set. Perfect. So this talk is going to be about pivoting. I mean, the entire conference has been around that. It's been an interesting year. We've been pivoting naturally, even if you don't realize it. But I don't think anyone doesn't realize it. So just to begin, this talk is called Your Organization is an Organism. And I'm going to get into what I mean by that as we go through. Why pivoting is vital to your personal and your professional survival. So it's good to meet you guys. I'm going to start first by at least informing you a little bit about myself so you know who it is talking to you today. I also understand, too, people on this call have very diverse backgrounds. So I'm going to speak a lot through this presentation of my own personal experiences as well as my own professional experiences, too. That way you guys are following along with the journey. And I always appreciate talking to or hearing from speakers that are literally in it, like still in the thick of it. We're still growing, not everything's figured out, but we're doing quite well in that process and progress to figuring it all out. So a bit about myself, CEO and founder of Who's Your Landlord, that's WYL.co, a platform that empowers and informs the rental community through landlord reviews and housing literacy content. And we also provide predictive analytics as a service to property managers and owners and operators to help them better serve their residents as well. I am a Temple guy, as you heard. Graduated in 2013. At Temple, I served as the VP of the student body. My senior year, serving in that position, I thought of the idea of Who's Your Landlord. It would take 2 years before we made it into an actual business, but I just want to highlight that gap of time, 2013 to 2020. It's been 7 years in the making to get to a 5-year-old business and to get to the point where we raised over $1.1 million as a team. And so that being said, this is an arduous process, but there's still more to my story that I think helped paint the full picture. While I was in college, I also got into acting and modeling. I've done some cool stuff, New York Fashion Week a bunch of times, done the Today Show a bunch of times, worked with Nike, Starbucks, Facebook, and many more groups. And so my biggest thing is in life, God's given us all these different blessings at our fingertips, or sometimes we got to work a little bit to figure them out. But once we do, it's our job, our duty to activate all of them. And so you won't ever hear me say, don't try different things. I think always is try different things that you're passionate about, that you can hone in on and work at. And if you can focus on them the way they need to be focused on, you can achieve a lot of success holistically. So to get to my business, again, more frame of reference, more character development, more context here. Who's Your Landlord focuses on providing those reviews for landlords and property managers. So responsiveness, condition of property, maintenance, safety, the things you want to know the most about, we tell you about, and actually your peers, your fellow renters tell you about this. We have a community of over 800,000 renters across the U.S. We have over 300 cities with reviews in them across the U.S., over 22,000 landlords reviewed on our platform. And we're growing every single day. And so we're ready to enter 2021 in a spectacular way. So to get to the meat of our conversation today, I'm going to start off by really thinking through and having us redefine or define organization. When we think of an organization, we think of a business, a unit, a group. And then organization is a collection of people that are working towards a North Star, like one common goal. Usually by the time you label it an organization, there's some alignment in place, a rubric you've put in place to make sure that everybody is on the same accord. And that's not quite different than an organism, which I'll get into. But I want to get into the crux of why we call it an organization and why it's so important to think of that root word org that ends up being the same alignment with organism. Recently, I heard a quote. I thought it was really, really masterful. So I've been sharing it a lot in different meetings. But you think of like growing a plant. Like plants are in, everybody's in their home. So the plant industry is actually doing quite well right now. And whenever you see a leaf browning in an area or dying, you have to trim it off, right? And the reason why you trim it off is because the roots are giving equal energy to all parts of this plant. So if you leave into that end, the dead end is giving energy there, even there. And can you guys hear me? Just want to make sure. My audio coming through? Oh. Can you hear me now? Awesome. So I'll take the headset off. I'm just gonna talk to y'all. Awesome. So with organism, I'm gonna take one step back in case anything I said in the first step was missed. Just with organization, a collection of people working towards a common goal, looking to achieve something that probably hasn't been achieved before, or if it has, it's okay. They're looking to repeat some executable strategy that's worked before. Think of an organism, and I hope a lot of this was heard, but if it's not, I'm going to say it again anyways, which is good. But think of your plants, right? The plant industry is doing extremely well right now. People are indoors. Everyone wants some life within their space. And an organism at the root is an animal or a cell, right? Something that can grow. When a plant is browning on a leaf or browning on some part of it, you trim off that edge because the root is giving equal energy to the entire plant. And so what you can't have it doing is giving equal energy to the entire plant, and part of it is dying. So you trim off the area that's dying so the rest can get the energy they need to grow and flourish even more. And that's how we have to think about our businesses, our organizations, ourselves. We constantly need to trim the fat and keep the meat, keep the right things that are going to push us forward and propel us forward in our pursuit. And so that at the core is what pivoting is. Like, no one pivots to get worse. You pivot to improve, right? And that's what an organism is supposed to do. So thinking about that same concept, let's think about a Netflix, for example. Netflix, most people don't know Netflix has been around since 1997. Netflix started out mailing you copies of DVDs. Netflix pivoted, right? They realized that is not sustainable for how big and how large they wanted to grow. They pivoted to streaming. Now they have a $221 billion market cap, right? So that pivot for them was very, very successful. Pivots don't just happen in business. We've watched businesses that have failed to pivot die, right? The Blockbusters of the world, the Kodaks of the world. Sometimes the business can actually innovate like a Kodak, create something special like a digital camera, and still not realize its value in comparison to what it already has on the market. So then they get passed by other groups who chose to pivot and go all in on the pivot. So realize, even for yourself, your personal download, it is so important that you're reevaluating and thinking through why and when is the right time to pivot, if that time is right. And so pivoting again, I just want to make sure I highlight, we pivot to improve. I hope, and I've never seen or met someone that's pivoted a business, themselves, or an organization to do worse than they've been doing. And when you think about how COVID has affected all of us, it's forced all of us to pivot. Like, I'm sitting in my apartment right now. I'm in Buffalo, New York. I split time between Brooklyn and Buffalo, but outside of those two cities, I haven't really been much to many other places all year long. I think that's true for most of us. We've stayed pretty put where we are. That's made us pivot. Whether it's, now you go to the store and every single store, Target, Walmart, whatever, they have those the selfie lights because people are using them for Zoom calls. People are using them for their phones more, recording more content. Like, that's a pivot, right? How we're moving within our spaces is different. So many people are moving because, maybe a 1-bedroom was enough before for themselves, for them and their partner. But now they need that extra bedroom to have a space for their office, because they don't want to have their office in their bedroom on top of them, right? Because we work so much. So there's so many things we're doing now actively that where we're pivoting in real time. We're relearning ourselves. We're figuring out what we're going to need to sustain ourselves, and we're realizing, okay, look, 2020 has been difficult. But sadly and honestly, 2021 is going to look pretty difficult too, at least for the first 6 months, maybe the next 9 months. So as we think of a new year, we get to go into this year with a little bit more understanding of how we've processed and pivoted within 2020, so that even if it's a very variable year ahead of us, we can be thinking of it with a little bit more foundation on the ground beneath us. As you're thinking about change and growth and development, it's really important to think about success and happiness. What is that relationship? How do they come together for you? It is very possible, which you all know, to be extremely successful and to be absolutely miserable. And that's not something that I want for any of you. I hope and I believe for you, by you even sitting here at Thanksgiving, that quite obviously isn't what you want for yourself. You're looking to marry the two, marry success, marry happiness. Think about our business. Who's your landlord? Yes, we've now raised over $1 million, so we can do Black-led companies to do so. Yes, we've grown to be a platform that now is used across the U.S. That's cool to say. That's cool to see. I want to see more growth. I want to be international, right? Yes, it's cool to see our team having grown now to 14 of us. That's great. You know, we have amazing people on our team from all different backgrounds, people that, you know, are leaders in their own right. And so for me to be an effective leader, you know, I've had to earn the respect of them to even for them to allow me to lead them, right? So let's put that in the success bucket. But like, what makes me happy about what we do? Is it the vanity things that I mentioned? Is it the team growth? Those things are really important. Those things are very, very profound in helping us move the needle forward. But the reason why team resonates so much with me is because that leans more into the happiness part of this for me. I get happiness and excitement knowing that I'm creating impact in the world. I get happiness and excitement closing a sales deal, understanding that we were able to present enough value for then an owner, an operator, or a lender to then see value in actually buying our software, right? And so for the techies out there, we have a subscription SaaS business model. We charge on a monthly fee. We're building up our volume of business, our volume of owners and operators that we're helping with. And what's been cool to watch is initially you start off with this platform to provide renters the ability just to speak out loud, have a place to go, to get that contact, and those insights, also to see what other renters experience. But now what's cool is literally watching us close that feedback loop. Are you guys hearing me? Okay, cool. Close that feedback loop and ensure that, you know, the owners and operators literally know how these qualitative insights can turn into quantitative outcomes for them, improving for them their bottom line, improving for them their net operating income, improving for them the actual value of their portfolio, just by listening to your renters. And then by adhering to that and creating the place to have quality service, you have now a fully looped feedback cycle. And so those things make me happy. Growth, impact, you know, watching team members grow into leaders. That's what brings me happiness. You know, as a founder, you know, I want to touch on this a little bit too. As a founder, there's a lot of talk about founders being in spaces where they're lonely. And, you know, while you do spend a lot of time alone in front of a computer, especially now a lot of us do, I never feel lonely. I just physically am alone, right? And the reason that is because I have a strong network around me, which I'll talk more about, because I think that's such a big part of pivoting, is making sure you have the support system, the ecosystem around you to even hold up the big pivot you're looking to do, whether it's changing your career course, whether it's you're about to hop into General Assembly or something, come out 3 months later coding and want to look into tech, whatever it is, that kind of pivot takes a mental shift and an emotional one too to make it happen. And so we'll go through all those things today. In measuring and thinking through why change is even impactful, you have to measure the efficacy of it, right? Are you being efficient? Are you being successful in hitting what you're looking to hit? At WIL, we have our KPIs, right? I'm looking at what's the review count? How many reviews are we getting a day? How many users are we seeing a day on our platform? You know, how fast can we lock in strategic partnerships? Can we partner with property management solution software so that now our surveys and reviews are going out to residents automatically versus us having to shout on social media or having to hope people come to our platform via Google, right? So these are things we're always doing to measure, do these changes that we're putting in place work? Is it worth it? Do we need to hit the drawing table again? Do we need to keep pushing forward? That's what you have to do for yourself. As a founder, and one friend of mine said this a couple of days ago, if they're the same founder they are next year that they were today, they failed. They failed themselves, they failed their team. My job is to keep learning, right? And we talk a lot about at WIL about you have to be addicted to learning to work here, right? And if not, you have to learn how to become addicted to learning, because in tech, everything moves quickly. If you rewind 20 years ago, the top companies are Chevron or Exxon, these massive companies in oil, that industry. Now, 20 years later, our biggest companies are Facebook, our Amazon, our Apple, right? So in 20 years, the kinds of jobs that lead the way have changed. In 20 years, where people's money sits in the markets have changed. And if you're not able to measure what is effective and to hold yourself to account for those things, it is very difficult to actually determine, was my pivot successful? Am I happier? Or am I just kind of twiddling in the wind? In order to do that, you have to make changes, right? Changes are at the root of what a pivot is. And I think in thinking of that, I mean from a personnel standpoint, I mean from an approach standpoint. The dog days for me of COVID, which I think has been true for everybody, was the summer when we were in it just long enough to understand what was happening. But still, for a lot of ourselves, it's hot outside or hotter. We're trying to figure out, how do we stay safe, and how do we also and try to enjoy a summer because it's not always warm in these colder areas. While at the same time too, like, how do you continue to show up effectively for work? We do one-on-ones on our team, sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly, depending on the nature of why we're having them. And, one of the questions I now asked, based on the founders accountability group that I'm in, and I learned it from them, was, I asked the team, personally, how would you score yourself A to E? So A, B, C, D, E. And professionally, how would you score yourself A, B, C, D, E? And this year, you're hearing a lot more C's and B's and sometimes even D's in terms of people's personal feelings, because they're inside so much. They're isolated. They're not getting that same human to human interaction and contact. A lot's changed. And the ability to understand how to best show up for your team members, show up for each other, is what helps advance that D to a C, that C to a B, the B to an A. And so we're constantly thinking about, how do we impart change the right way so that we can improve on what we're looking to improve, right? From a business level, you're going to look at, what, again, are there going to be the outcomes here? You're going to measure things called A/B testing sometimes to understand, okay, does route A work, or does route B work better? Let's go with route B because that works better. Put our money there. Focus our unit economics towards B, right? But you have to test different things out to see what level of change is going to bring that to you. And if you're thinking about it from a personal perspective, once again, for me, like I said, the dog days were the summer. I was in front of the computer like the entire day, but that's not necessarily healthy, right? And figuring out when you wake up early, before, when we had more of a routine, you might work out in the morning. You might read, whether it's read the newspaper, whether it's read a book, whether it's just read what's happening online on Twitter for like 20 minutes before you go to work. There was a routine you develop. You then would commute to work, you get to work, you're around people, you're able to cultivate and build a team, a network, a communication like group, or a group that communicates together. And then from there, you go home and you have your own routine. Maybe you hit the gym after work. I don't know, like whatever your flow was your flow. But I'm sure many of you can attest to this. That was turned on its head completely this year. And so when understanding that, it's, well, how many months have to go by before you realize, well, this is a new norm for now, at least. And we got to figure out and adjust what makes me feel peace, what makes me feel happy and fulfilled, and what's going to allow me to push things forward. That starts again with the self, and then it grows into you observing and creating your professional and your personal team. For me, I have mentors in every vertical of our business. I have VC mentors, venture capital mentors, that talk to me about how to raise capital effectively, that tell me for a Series A, you got to have $1 million ARR. Series B, you got to get around 5. Series C, 10 and more, right? Like, they're giving me insights. They're giving me the tea as to how to raise capital effectively. I have a mentor about business development, several actually. We have an advisory board. We have board members. Like, I'm constantly learning from people who know business better than I do. And that's okay. Like, your job isn't to know everything. It's to know what you don't know. Plug people in places where they can impart on you the things that you need to know to get advanced and get to where they are and even further, right? And that also gets into your team, like a literal team around you every day. We're not all going to be in a position to be able to pick the people we work with every day. And I understand that. That's why your professional team doesn't necessarily mean the people you work with every day. For me, I'm blessed. It is. And it expands beyond that as well to, like I said, those mentors. But you have to figure out for you, who are your professional folks in your network? Who are your mentors in work and outside of work that push you forward, that constantly are challenging the way you're thinking about your own personal development, your own business development over time, that are constantly pushing you to think about your career and taking whichever position is necessary to get to where you're looking to go or aspirationally looking to go. That's your professional team. Those are the people that are always going to look out for you and check you and be your accountability partners as you move towards success in your career. Then you have your personal team. This could be family, this can be friends. There could be crossover sometimes between professional and personal, as best as that works for you. And your personal team, they're going to hold you to account for the personal stuff, making sure you show up for family events, making sure you're still plugged in, making sure you're still making time for your friends. It's been so easy for so many of us to withdraw ourselves. I think in the beginning, hopping on FaceTime, hopping on Zoom calls with friends and family was like we were all doing it maybe more than ever before. A lot of people would say, I'm closer to my family now, actually, than I was before COVID. And that's dope. That's good to hear. But as I'm sure many of you have seen over time, you start to communicate with people that you frankly care about the most. And people that are on the periphery, on the edges, get kind of left out. And in our minds, maybe sometime next year when things are a little bit better, or maybe start to recultivate those fringe relationships. But all that stuff matters. I think the key thing, though, is to realize who is your professional team and who's on it, and how can you support them and how can they support you. In doing that, none of us are strangers to hard decisions. Some of us have had to literally cut off friends that we've had in the past that don't serve us anymore for where we're looking to go. Some of us have had to cut off family members that aren't serving us in ways we need to go. Life is hard. No one would dispute that. I don't think any of you would dispute that. But it's so important to understand, unpack for yourself, what do you have to do to put yourself in the best position to make hard decisions, right? Are you a person that needs to take a piece of paper out, take a pen out, do a pros and cons list, and if it's pros outweighing the cons, that's the decision, right? Are you the person that needs to just solely write it all out, pray on it hard, talk to a few friends, get their approval, and move forward? Maybe that's your flow. Whatever your flow is, figure it out, hone in on it. And I think the best way to think about it is because a lot of times we don't actually sit there and process our flows. We just make the decision, and then years later we look back and go, thank God I made the decision. Or we're like, damn, I shouldn't have made that decision. I would challenge each of you to go back to a time where you made a hard decision that ended up bearing fruit, and saying to yourself, what did I do to arrive at the space where I was ready to make the decision? And then to replicate that and hone in on that process, that lead up to decision-making process. The more you refine that for yourself personally, the more you refine that for yourself professionally, the better you'll be at making those hard decisions, because you'll know that the ephemeral nature of it, the right now is difficult. Me and this person might have a bumpy relationship for right now. The next 2 weeks might be awkward. The next 2 months might be awkward. Sometimes the next couple of years might be awkward. But I know the downstream impacts of the decision I'm making, and I still feel that the outcome for what I'm looking for is going to outweigh any of that stuff in the middle. But you have to get to a point where you feel comfortable making those kind of calls. And that's not always easy. But it's necessary for survival. It's very, very necessary for survival. If you're not constantly challenging yourself, if you're not constantly pivoting and putting yourself in positions to succeed in ways that maybe you weren't thinking about before, you will die. Die spiritually, die emotionally, die in terms of energy and motivation, or your company will implode. In order for us to survive as a business, we have to change in a way that keeps pace with the industry. So I'll give you an example. 5 years in business as an INC, awesome. We've seen the growth over time. We're doing the month-over-month checks. Okay, 30% month-over-month growth in users, awesome, right? Organic growth, that's great. It got to a point in 2018 where that year we won the Innovators and Disruptors Award presented by NBC Universal and America on Tech. Shout out to Evan and Jessica. We won. We were labeled the MVP of landlord review sites by apartmenttherapy.com. We were in a ton of press. We've been in everything: Forbes, Newsweek, Blavity, Now This News, you name it, we've probably been in. That was great, but what did that actually mean for the business? Well, what it meant was that we were finally being put on the map or on the radar of developers, real estate developers. And we started getting these inquiries from bigger real estate developers saying, how can we work together? Where is there an alignment? And I think naturally, think about politics, think about gentrification, think about how we think about developers. It tends to be negative because we tend to look at them as folks that are changing neighborhoods sometimes faster than they should be, and or they're removing people that have been in the community for forever, namely and mostly that look like us. And that's a tough thing. What I was realizing though, when talking to them, was a lot of them had no clue how to really tap into and understand their residents, right? They had a management company on site that would sometimes deal with the residents directly, but the owners, the operators at large, didn't really understand what was happening. And so the more we were able to realize, okay, there's a couple gaps here, right? One is that renters often don't feel heard. And that didn't matter. We literally I've had a homeless person stop me at City Hall in Philadelphia and tell me how the platform is helpful for housing. I've had the director of brand for Twitter hit me up in Brooklyn, New York, because her and her husband had a bad situation with their landlord. It doesn't matter the class of money. Everyone goes through something in this space. It's a very opaque industry. It's one of the oldest, if not the oldest industry on the planet. So knowing all those things to be true, the question I started asking was, instead of me telling developers how we can improve and inform their processes, I need to listen to what they were saying were their issues. They were saying to us, their issues were, okay, if I'm a developer that prides myself on good quality service, what I find is my margins tend to be narrow, which is fair, right? You're usually having to put more money up environment for your resident to feel happy, is the thought. What people didn't realize, though, were that most time people cared most about safety, especially for female renters. Safety was like number one by far. We've seen this data. Communication, how often or how responsive are they? When the maintenance team says they're going to come and fix the fridge, do they come within the week that they said they were going to come, or do they come a month later? You know, those kind of things renters care about the most. So when we started talking to developers about these things, some of it, they could be like, okay, I could figure that. But until you look at data, just hard data about this stuff, right? It's very hard to understand how this information can inform how you spend your money and spend your time and resources as a developer to create a better product for the renter. And so for our survival, yeah, it was cool being able to have these one-off brand partnership deals, right? We worked with Allstate, American Express, Roadway Moving, like some really dope companies that paid a lot of money to work with us. Awesome. But that for us wasn't the scalable business model that was going to make us a VC backable company. What was going to do that was being able to figure out how do you create again and close that feedback loop within this ecosystem. And so by us understanding renters' issues, being able to build trust and community with renters that use our platform every day, and then being able to understand owners and operators and what they're engaging with, what they're dealing with, and how they can best improve their quality of service, which actually improves their portfolio value, well, then we figured out a way to win for everybody. And so now we're creating software on that side of the market, and that has been, it's a learning experience, right? We brought on a data scientist, we brought on a new lead engineer, we have another front-end engineer that's joined our team, right? Like, we're bolstering up the team from a product sales and data perspective to be able to meet the demand of the entire market for what we're looking to serve. So you have to do those things to survive. You have to do those things to grow. As a founder of a company, you know your idea, or you're taught this, whether it's through personal experience or through someone telling you this, the idea you start with is never, like, I seriously mean this, never the idea you end with that then makes you all the growth in terms of money, usage, all those things. There's always going to be, even if it's micro pivots, micro iterations, all those things are important to ensure your survival and, of course, your growth. You know, as you're, you know, now we're at a point, we've made a lot of hard decisions. We're looking at how we can grow. We're pacing. We're doing quite okay, right? We're, you know, month over month, everything's growing, yada yada yada. As a person, you feel good. You know, your family's happy. They're healthy. Friends are happy. They're healthy. You know, professionally, you're figuring it out, right? All that being said, like I said, there's always that gap between like when you start the change and when the change pays off, right? When you embark down the path of working out to improve your body, you're in your mind, the first day you go to the gym, you know, you hit the iron, you run, you jog, and you're like, you go and look in the mirror. After the first day, you're like, yo, I'm sweating. Like, I should look different by now. And we all know that you never do, right? You just look wet. So the reality is, it's going to take a month, 2 months, 5 months before you see progress. But you have to go all in to see the progress. You know, if you change your diet, you change it for one day, it's not enough to see the progress. Change it for 1 week, okay, you're on to something, you know, like, but how do you take 1 week and make it into 4 weeks, 4 weeks into 2 months, 2 months into a year? and then really measure the change. That lull period where you don't really know what's working and what's not, that's where it's easiest to be hard on ourselves. Damn, I moved to a new city. It's hard for me to make friends. I'm not able to move forward in my career as fast as I want to. I'm struggling to even find a job. Like, yo, this is crazy. What did I do? It's so easy to fall into that space, to fall into that mental entrapment. Not realizing though, like all that stuff you're feeling is actually healthy. And I'll say healthy from a standpoint of if you can realize how to channel it. Channel that anxiety, channel that frustration, channel it into how you can either come to peace in those moments of insecurity, in those moments of discomfort, or channel those moments into like progress for yourself. Find new things you're interested in to take your mind off of the angst you have in the moment, right? But you have to learn how to do certain things as to reduce the level of stress you're putting on yourselves. The reality is, especially in this business, a lot of our pressures are actually privileges. And I don't mean to say that and sound like I'm not taking into account like pressure fucking sucks. What I'm saying is those pressures and how we learn to deal with them improve us for next time and improve us for next time and improve us for the next time. So it's not important to be super hard on yourself. You can be hard on yourself and think through things, right? But you have to know when to take the pedal off, your foot off the gas. Know when to pause, know when to breathe, know when to just sit with something. Because comfortable as you can possibly be in spaces of discomfort, like that's a gray area that makes people successful, right? Like successful people aren't folks that just enjoy doing arduous work that no one else likes doing. That's not what's happening here. What's happening is they become consistent at doing the things that suck. It's cool. It's great to be able to keynote, and I love that I'm getting an opportunity to close this out. Right, I'm following up from amazing speakers and amazing opportunities you guys have had over the last few days. That's great. What's not seen though is again how long I'm sitting in front of this computer day to day, how many Zoom calls I'm on, how many times I'm checking in with the team on a personal level and a professional level. How we're having to have let friends go, fire friends, fire family members. Like that part's not seen on the interwebs. That part is all behind the scenes. That's all where the work is though. So if I get married too much to what everyone else is seeing, I lose sight of how to consistently do the work that oftentimes most people here don't want to do. So challenge me and challenge that thought by proving to yourself that you're one of those people that likes to play in that gray area of understanding how to best be comfortable when things are uncomfortable and showing up and doing the work throughout. The best way to have and create that stick-to-itiveness, that consistency, the best way to not be as hard on yourself as possible is to have a North Star. What is your goal? At companies, we call them KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. Or you have your OKRs, your objectives and key results that you're aiming for. In real life, have those things for yourself. Define that North Star for you, right? My goal is to lose 20 pounds by the end of the year. Okay, well then what do I have to do that? Do I have the means to talk to a dietitian? Do I not? Do I have to just hop on Google? Do I have to go to YouTube University and figure it out? Cool, figure out whatever it is you got to do, but create that North Star so you have something to look towards, right? And we've all heard that adage of, if you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. It's your job to define that North Star, realize things will never be linear, right? And that wouldn't be fun anyways, right? Your job is to figure out all the ups and downs between you as you currently are constituted today and that goal, that star that you're looking to get to, how that will be tomorrow. The middle part, again, that gray area of discomfort, of stress, of anxiety, that's where you have to learn for you how to create that peace, how to find that mental wellness and really focus and invest in your mental health, right? For me personally, it's prayer. For me personally, working out. For me personally, it's making time for friends and family. Even if I know they want even more time and vice versa, right? I know how to best utilize my time so I can maximize my time with the people that I love the most. You have to learn what that looks like for you. And the fastest way to get there is to define that North Star. Define where you are today, like describe where you are today. And then in the middle, it's important for you to say, not necessarily the the things you want to achieve. I think those can be ephemeral in nature. I want to be on this billboard. Okay, the billboard's up one day, it's down 30 days later. I want to be on this magazine. Okay, the magazine's out now, and then no one's reading it later. It's more important to define, how do you want to feel during that period of time, right? You know anxiety is going to come. You know stress is going to come. But how do you combat that? How do you find peace and solace within that? Who is your personal team? Who's on your professional team to help support you through that? Like, you're creating this, you're insulating yourself on that journey to the North Star. So define for yourself and unpack where you are now, define for yourself where you're looking to go, and then realize, if you tell yourself, and I ask people this all the time when I get to know them, I'll say 7 years from now, just some random number. What do you hope to feel? Like, what do you want to feel like 7 years from now? Not who do you want to be, like where do you want to, work, or what do you hope to achieve in 7 years or a decade or whatever. I ask people, how do they want to feel 7 years from now, a decade from now? And you find that answer is way more intriguing than the answer around where they want to be. I challenge you to, if you're in the process now of defining your new North Star in this space of pivoting, define for yourself first how you want to feel, and then say, what do I want to achieve? And if you put how you want to feel on that dream catalog or that chart above what you want to accomplish, you will ensure, at least it helps remind you to ensure that you only want to get here if it allows for you to feel this. And if it doesn't give you that, well, maybe it's cool that you got there, but maybe that's actually not for you. Define how you want to feel in that journey and process and getting there, and then define how you want to feel once you get there. And then audit yourself, check yourself. Is it working? Do I feel happy? Is my happiness equating to my success? Or is my success up here, my happiness is down here, right? That you got to figure those things out. Some people, it's inverse, right? Their happiness is up here, their success is down there, but they're okay with that because they're happy, right? I had a friend of mine who was like, look, my thing is traveling. Don't really care about my job. As long as it can sustain and support my traveling, I am as happy as I'll ever be in this life. That's their decision. That's how they feel. That's their download. What's wise is that they listen to that, right? Don't allow yourself to be intoxicated and caught up in everyone else's aspirations and goals for themselves, and inherently then what they push on you, right? Maybe your dream is to own a lot of real estate. Maybe your dream is to own a lot of tech companies and build tech companies. Maybe your dream is to be some major investor. Maybe it's to be a low-key angel investor. Maybe it's to sit on a bench in a park most days. Define it for yourself. See how you feel when you're pursuing it, and then put yourself in that space, right? It doesn't mean don't challenge yourself to new ideas. Constantly be, learning, but also realize for you what is going to make you happy. That's me. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. We're all supporting each other here. You can support us and yourselves in reality here by hopping on wil.co and reviewing your landlord. This information is very important because, again, that crowdsourced information goes towards other people in your community. When they're looking for housing, when they're in housing, they can see any adjacencies and things that are going on. Bringing me back to how we even started the business, seeing countless cases of infestation, countless cases of male landlords harassing female tenants, countless cases of maintenance teams just not responding to people. Those were the impetus and the leading things that got me to start this business. And it's crazy that all these years later, it's the same stuff, right? But we've seen massive improvement. We've been sued. We've gotten through all that stuff. I've been called every name in the book by every landlord you can imagine. It's part of it, right? But your reviews help to highlight the issues. Your reviews help to highlight the positives. Your reviews help to make it a very opaque industry, one that's transparent. So hop on wil.co on your mobile device, on your desktop. Make sure you post a review. Tell us how we can improve. We're always looking to improve. And that's me. So thanks for your time, guys. And again, Ofo Ezeugwu, CEO and founder of Who's Your Landlord. Let's build together. Let's not be afraid of pivot and change. Let's embrace it. Let's just get this right, get our head and our heart right, and we can make it happen. So take care.
My God, I want to say, Pastor, that was our guest pastor, Ofo, came in real quick to bless us with some gems, bless us with our Sunday meal. That was a full meal today. We graduated the same year, 2013. So you might know Mike. You might know a couple of them alphas from,
I do.
Yeah. I'm about to say, yeah, definitely have to cross paths. But now, so we have a couple questions from our audience that we would love to ask you real quick, if you're fine with that.
Of course.
Cool. One thing I did want to point out, like you made a very great point with saying what do you have to do to put yourself in the best decision to make hard decisions.
Yeah.
I feel we always plan for the best case scenario.
For sure.
And wish that the worst case would never happen. And which is why we leave ourselves, fumbling when we have to make hard decisions when bad things do happen. When did you realize that it was so important to prepare for hard decisions, prepare for, downtimes?
2016, we ran out of money. And I wasn't equipped enough as a leader to have handled that the best way I could have, right? Okay, you can be well-spoken, cool. You can put yourself in positions to succeed, cool. None of that negates the account depleting. Like when you visualize and see that happening, and when I say I wasn't equipped to be the leader in that moment, what I mean by that is I wasn't ready to have those hard conversations with team members at that time. People that have invested time, people that, yeah, they're on salary, they're getting paid, cool, but that doesn't, like, trust is that's really what we operate on, the frequency we operate on. So if the CEO of the company is telling them 2 months out, hey, y'all, it's looking tough. Like some people would argue 2 months, that's a decent amount of time. To me, I knew at the time we were like 4 or 5 of us on the team. That wasn't enough time for people to really try to figure out, am I all in? Should I start looking for a new job?
Yeah.
Like what about, so what I'm getting at is I learned in that moment, and thank God that, that was a situation where I remember crying, being like, yo, and asking God, like, yo, how can I do this? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Awesome. And I kind of started laughing to myself within the crying because I was like, yo, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I feel it in my core. So then it becomes, okay, how do I correct these things? Okay, well, we talk to people, you have conversations, you acknowledge fault. You tell people that you owe money that yo, I'm going to get you your money. I'm going to update you on when I get money. So you know when the money's coming. Right. And then you go out there and go after it. And it was, it was like a couple, I think, weeks later where we closed a 10K deal. And then a few weeks later, we got another 50K investment. And now, since then we raised another like 800K on top of that or so. So that process, that journey it can be difficult, but I had to go back and look at all the things I did incorrectly to understand going forward, how do I not redo those mistakes? And then I had to look at the things I've done successfully, the decisions I made that were impactful and worked for the betterment of myself and the company, and say, okay, well, what did I do in those decisions? And what was that process to get me there? And oftentimes, I'll be real, like by the time anyone on the outside is reading an email that's really tough to handle, to read, to take, it's been read by somebody outside of myself. I promise you that. Like someone's BCC or someone's got that email first, because I need other smart people, other trustworthy eyes to look at it before I put myself out there like that. So that's how I'd say is the best way to approach it.
Love it. A lot of gems in there as well. One thing that I heard in there was, in a low moment, you said, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You sustained, you stayed the course, which we were talking about on day one. A lot of people struggle with that, staying the course, and they end up flip-flopping, going from this job or this passion to this passion, because they think that because they go through a downtime, they're not supposed to be doing that. So how do you talked about the North Star as well. So how do you stay the course when you are at the point of discovering your North Star to finally attaining it?
Yeah. A friend of mine said this in a very flippant way, and I don't think he realized how important it was for me to hear it at the time. But he was asked, by somebody that we were just kind of hanging out with, like, since his company wasn't making money, it wasn't doing that great. Like, he was like, why? The guy was like, yo, like, why are you still building that? Like, why don't you just do something else? And the dude was like, that's a fair question. But he's like, but the more I've thought about that over the years, it's like, I just want this to exist in the world.
Ooh.
That's it. Right. And so I'm not saying don't have goals and aspirations to like make it work. But that resonated with me because I'm like, yo, at the core of that decision, when I was literally laying face down in my bed, she's crying. At the core of that decision was like, all right, I'm sitting here praying to God, like, yo, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm tired of the looking and clocking the money. I'm tired of not being resourced. 1% of VC funds annually go to Black people. Like, these are stats that are just out there, right? Yeah. that's a hard pill to swallow. But in that moment, I'm like, I want this to exist. I know it's a need. I've heard it. I've gotten enough outside product market fit and validation. It's like, yo, like, all right, a few old stoogey investors said they don't understand it. That's why am I getting hung up on that? Like, let's just focus on how do we build a sustainable product that can make money and can get investment. And so I think for me, that's how I choose to think about those things. It's like you have to really tap into, well, why are you doing it? And at the core, remember, and also, all right, isolate this. The tears that day were from the breaking point, right, of having to hold all that. But I was always happy through all that. So the tears that was an ephemeral moment. That was a moment in time. That wasn't indicative of how I felt the whole time. I wasn't sitting here sad the whole time. I was just like, damn it, I really want to figure out this problem right now. And I can't figure out this problem right now. Learn that for yourself. What do you feel throughout that process? And what is a drop in the bucket? What is an ephemeral moment that's going to pass? And that's, I think, how you end up being in a space where you can identify, do I have the moxie to figure out this? Or is it best that I kind of just put this to the side and step away?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Man, I hope this is being recorded and I hope y'all are taking notes. Write it down. Don't type it in. Write it down so it sticks. But you know that. But what I was gonna say. So your next question, why? So you said why I want this to exist. Why did you personally want Who's Your Landlord to exist in society? Like, why did it personally hit you?
Because it not existing made absolutely no sense to me.
Okay.
And I'll say why. But then you're in college, like, and I'm sure a lot of people can have this experience. When you're moving off campus, it's a crapshoot, right? Like, what are you doing in that process? You're probably talking to, if you're in a frat or sorority, you're talking to some of your brothers and sisters that have maybe lived on campus already, off campus already. Yeah. Giving some recommendations.
Oh man,
you there? Okay, cool.
Okay.
You're going online, you're seeing what comes up, but you're not getting any additional insights. And so for us, I know what me and my friend group, what we would do is, and it's like a project in college. One person really spearheaded all the work, right? That was my boy Luke. He would be on Craigslist. He'd be doing all the things, looking for properties. Yeah. And then we would go together then to tour the space. And what we would do almost like religiously is we would tour the space with the landlord or property manager. We'd leave. And then the very next day or later that day, we'd come back, knock on the door, and ask the tenants, like, hey, all right, they're not here. What's really up? And we found out so much information doing that. And I was like, shouldn't that exist online? Like, shouldn't word of mouth be like digital? And so that being a gap in the market, looking at them, there was Yelp, and we had that for restaurants, clubs, and bars. We had TripAdvisor for, hotels and whatnot. I was like, why don't we have Glassdoor for jobs and careers? And so I'm like, why don't we have that for housing? And so it missing is why I felt like it needed to be there. Me experiencing that moment led to that too. But the more I was talking to Temple students and hearing their stories, like, we had one landlord, when I talk about the male landlord harassing the female tenants, there was one landlord that had like 30 reviews in Philly, and it was all the same kind of reviews, him harassing his female tenants. Like I said, I've been threatened by, like, my life threatened by landlords. I had a politician who's also a landlord called me a nigger, in my inbox. I still have the receipts. I've gone through a lot, and a lot of that stuff doesn't get publicized. This doesn't need to be. But it's like, the more I get that pushback, like, we're going up against giants. Like, real estate, like I said, is the oldest industry.
Yeah.
When you're looking to change it, you're going to ruffle a lot of feathers. But also you're going to bring a lot of people together in that process. So for me, that's big enough and a hairy and audacious enough goal that I'm inspired every day. And so that's why I still have the same fervor and energy, and actually it grows every day than even where it was when I started.
I mean, change is uncomfortable. So what you're doing, you're going the right direction if you get pushback.
100%.
How do you respond to pushback?
I just talked about this yesterday. That's so interesting that you asked that. This is going to sound weird, but so think of yourself in like an argument. We all had those moments where it's like you leave the argument and you're like, damn, I should have said this and I should have said that, all these things. When those moments are happening, I honestly feel like everything slows down. Like, I think of it like, an NBA player about to take the last shot in the game, a quarterback, it's a 2-minute drill, they're looking to win it all. And oftentimes you hear these athletes talk, they say the game slows down for them in those moments. It almost feels like it's like slow motion. And so in those situations, whether it's like super tense or in person and or even super tense in like digital, things for me slow down. Like I tend to almost freeze and I'm like looking at myself and that person or that institution. And I'm looking at these two entities going back and forth. And I'm thinking, how do we best get to the solution? By doing that for myself, what it forces me to do is not to be so emotionally attached because I'm no longer in it. I'm not in it. I'm looking at myself. It forces me to now think about factually, strategically, with words, with receipts. How do I advance this like hockey puck, or how do I advance this football down the field?
Yeah.
And if you think about it that way, you're never caught flat-footed. Like I say, like, it's a founder job to be a few steps ahead of the curve. Like if you're a Black founder and there's way more variables at play, less resources, you got to stretch the dollar further. You got to be like 6, 7 steps ahead. The only way you can do that is by learning, reading, and making sure you're documenting how you handle these processes before and getting great mentorship from people who've already done it. So that's how you gotta approach it, and that's how I approach those tough situations.
I love that. How did you find some mentors to help you with this venture?
Again, I love adages, so I'm just gonna keep referencing them. Right, this idea that if your car breaks down on the side of the road, no one just randomly helps a person sitting on the side of the road.
Yep.
What happens is when you get out, when you put the car in neutral, you get out, you start pushing it. Someone goes, hey, I'll put a hand in and push too. Mm-hmm. People have to see you doing it. Like everybody wants to come out of the gates and say, Oprah's my mentor. Oprah busy, man. Like Oprah don't got that time. You know what I mean? Like you look at the next step of where you're looking to go, right? Like have one mentor aspirationally that's like, yo, all right, this person is definitely where I want to be. And maybe I want to surpass that even, but they're up there. And then have your mentor for like, yo, I want to get to that next step, right? Like I just want to get there, and then in the next step, the next incremental step. So in the way you get a mentor is by actively doing stuff, doing the work. If you do the work, and I let social media do that work a little bit. Yeah, it's gonna keep doing it. I don't know why.
Okay.
But I let social media do much of that work for me. LinkedIn is such a powerful tool because honestly, like it's a bunch of professionals on a platform. I don't have to necessarily curate it every day. All I got to do is meet somebody, have a good conversation, add them on LinkedIn, keep them there for the next 2, 3, 5 years. What's going to happen is as they're seeing my updates come through, they feel like they know me. Like, oh, that's the guy that's always working hard, always doing good stuff. Like, boy, you better keep doing it. Like that develops without me having to really talk to them every day and work that relationship. Let social media, let these other outlets do that work for you if you feel comfortable. Yeah. At the end of the day, though, people see consistency as key. So even as myself, like I mentor, students now, I mentor entrepreneurs now. I sit on several boards now. That time that I give, though, like what I'm looking at is not, hey, Ofo, I want to pick your brain and understand how to build a business. Like, okay, to be honest, if I've seen your work ethic in other spaces and I feel like it's aligned, I might still take that general meeting. Yeah. Usually, though, that's way too general for me to take that meeting because I know my time will be wasted. We're going to spend an hour of you pitching me ideas that some of them are good, some of them might not be. That's not my judgment to make. Yeah. And what will happen is I'll tell you what you need to do to get to the next step. And we'll meet again 3 months from now. And you'll ask me the same kind of questions you asked me 3 months ago. Or you'll pitch me the same story. Oh, well, my day job is, it's tucking up my time. So I haven't really started it yet, but I'm still thinking about it. I don't got time for you to think about it. That's your time. So what mentors are looking for and giving their time is someone who's committed to growth. If 3 months pass and I'm like, yo, what'd you accomplish? You're like, yo, I got an LLC now. Or I got incorporated in Delaware now. I found a co-founder now. Yeah. I put $5,000 of my own money into a business bank account so I can start actually separating the funds. That's the stuff I want to hear to know, like, yo, you're really about it. And mentors that mentor me, they see that too in me. So they give me their time benevolently as a result.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the gem right there was, Delaware, incorporating in Delaware is something that you might not know. That's a big gem. I mean, you said it, you were preaching, but I'm just like, people need to know that if you want to incorporate your business, the reason that pretty much every Fortune 500 company is incorporated in Delaware is because it's the cheapest. It's the cheapest, most affordable annually. So gems. But we're gonna jump to some questions from the audience right now. Let me see. I feel like you kind of answered this already, but what was the biggest blocker in you becoming incorporated from 2013 to 2015?
The biggest blocker was it was still very much an idea. Like I think we had a beta platform out there that Temple students got to use actually, which was pretty cool. I got to get a lot of feedback from Temple students. I had initial co-founders that I was working with. You're trying to figure things out. They both had full-time jobs. And I had several jobs when I was in school. So like that transition process was not as smooth as it could have possibly been. Mm-hmm. In 2015, quite candidly, what happened was I pitched that idea for the second time in a row at the Be Your Own Boss Bowl for Temple. Mm-hmm. That was the second time I pitched that idea. It was the third time that I entered a business into that competition, or at least a business idea. And what people didn't know was that we won $20,500 that year through that competition. That was our first ever capital towards a business. Outside of little money I could put into it. What people don't know though is that was the first time I had a mentor that I was working with like daily. At the time I was living in Brooklyn, New York, and commuting to the Bronx, New York, where he lived twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I would go there. He had this big screen TV. He had this dude that raised $30+ million for his companies. Was just that dude. He knew what he was talking about. Yeah. He had me pull up a financial spreadsheet and pull up my investor deck and walk me through everything. Walk him through everything. Mm-hmm. And he would just shit on me. That's wrong. Why would you say that? It makes no sense. We would do this all day long, Tuesdays and Thursdays, every week for 4 months straight. And it was also a brutal ass winter. So getting from, and anybody that lives in New York City, like from Brooklyn to the Bronx, you might as well drive to Philly. Like legit, it's that far. And so, and it was really bad the days I forget my headset and I'm just sitting on that train for like 2 hours. But when I then pitched in the Be Your Own Boss Bowl, the first year I entered my first business, Untapped, which was what I founded that in college. Mm. It took me 4 months to work on that. I had 2 business partners I was working with, 4 months to put that business plan together. We didn't even get an email back other than the one that says, thanks so much for like reaching out. The second year, I sat at my computer before spring break. I was at Temple. Took me 4 days to create that business plan. The year we won, I locked myself in my office in Brooklyn and I sat there for 9.5 hours. My co-founder would bring me coffee like at increments. I wrote the entire business plan from scratch. And that's what I mean by the idea of like, the more you talked earlier about writing things down, we talked about mentorship and all those things. Like your brain is a computer. Like we would call people back in the day computers before we started creating literal computers. Mm. The first year I didn't know that much. I knew a little bit. It took me 4 months, and it took me a whole full team around. The second time I knew a lot more. Actually, it took me 4 days. The third time it took me 9 hours, 9.5 hours. Like you start to download information faster, and a lot of it was because I was getting drilled incessantly by this dude who had done it before, every Tuesday and every Thursday, mm-hmm. every week for 4 months. So when we got that first check, we applied for Dream Adventures in Philly. We got into Dream Adventures, got another $25K check. That's when we got incorporated because we couldn't take their money without having that Delaware C Corp designation. Otherwise, we were just like a bunch of partners building something. So that's why I highlight it's our 5-year. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary because 5 years ago, October, we became a business. So.
Love it, man. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
You know your stuff, man. You know your stuff. But you went through some hard grind to get there. Let me see. We have a couple more from the audience. Is there such a thing as overpivoting? If so, what are some common indicators?
Yes. It's easy to overpivot when it's just you. The second you have another team member, and then 4 more, and then 10 more, people are looking at you to lead in those spaces. And then and maybe I can focus this on like personal decisions too. So because that's actually, I think, the harder space to determine that. But at least from a professional standpoint, if every 2 months or every 3 months or every quarter, the CEO is pitching a new vision for the business, who's going to feel safe in that environment? Like, mm-hmm. You're going to start looking for other jobs because this ain't it. It seems like they don't know what works. As you're developing your firm, you're thinking of, okay, initial idea stage, and then creating an initial product, and then you're looking at product market fit. Like you need to hear from others if what you're doing even matters. So when you're pivoting, ask the right questions, be doing the right research steps that are needed, right? That means that you do the thing. Well, you set the goals, you do the thing, you assess how it worked out. Then you iterate. If you keep following that flow, your pivots become sharper. They're better pivots because they're more informed pivots versus just like, today I want to do this and then tomorrow I want to start that, right? From a personal level, those things adhere to you as well, right? Like, a lot of our time, people aren't privy to how we spend all of our time. Like, you can put your phone down, you can turn Netflix off, right? In those gaps of time where it is just you and some paper and a pen or a computer, you can just like spitball ideas, think about what you want to do, think about how you want to grow yourself, and then commit yourself to that for like, give yourself a quarter. Like, all right, from January through March, I want to focus on this. Yeah. I want to read 10 books between January and March, and I'm going to do it this way. And if you go out there and I read 3 books, do I feel good about that? Do I not? Okay, I wanted to read more. I don't feel that good. Okay, well, how do we change that for the next 3 months? Did the 3 books even talk to me? I don't like it at all. Well, then stop. Figure out another way to get information, right? But give yourself the freedom to make the decision.
Yeah.
Give yourself the freedom to determine what positive and success looks like. And then give yourself the freedom and the time you need to determine how you get it done and how you felt while you were getting it done.
Once again, I hope y'all wrote that down. I hope y'all wrote that down, man. I really hope y'all wrote that down. In simplicity, he said, do it. So it's the flow.
Do it. Do it.
And then after that, assess, okay, is this of benefit to me? Is it not a benefit to me? What are the benefits? Write down what the benefits are. Don't just say yes or no. Really, dive into it, identify. We got a lot of questions flowing in now. How do you prioritize projects when you have more projects than you have time?
That's every day. That's legit every day. I prioritize them based on what needs to get done first, or what's most important, right? So, I always have a scrolling list. I'm very old school with it. Like, every morning I write out my agenda for the day, and then I just go through and checkbox them, right? So I feel like when I know it's like 2. Cool. When it's 2 o'clock, I've been in meetings all day, and I still have a full list of things to do, and I still want to have a life outside of work, right? So for me, I think the most important thing is realizing first, get better at prioritizing things. Realize what are the things that have to be done now. What are the things that can wait till tomorrow, and what are the things that I can delegate that, right? It doesn't serve me right now to go learn how to how to be a complete digital marketer. Like, our head of digital marketing has every certification you can imagine from Google, from Facebook, and so on and so forth. It's easier for me to say, hey, can you do this, right? You have to get good at delegating. Like, take on what you're good at, delegate what you're not the best at. Doesn't mean don't learn it. You should still peripherally understand what's going on. But that's why you have a team. And again, even for your personal team, we all have the one friend that's super creative. We all have the one friend that's super businessy. We all have the one friend that's been investing since they were like 19. Like, utilize them, right? Go to that person that's been investing since they were 19. Like, how do I get in the public markets? Go to the person that's been, the business person. Say, look, I'm trying to be an SVP here in 10 years. How do I get there? Like, whatever, figure it out, but ask the people that know what they're doing in those spaces to do it. Like, you have your own skill sets and blessings, and so do they. And that's the best way to prioritize.
Listen, come to the table with the table, man. and when you realize that you have your own light and they have their own light, then y'all not fighting for the room.
Exactly.
You're sharing the space and providing the resources that they have to bring to the table. But I mean, you got to know a little bit about West Africa to know about that, the history. Okay, so next question is, how do you check to make sure reviews are legit and accurate?
Yeah, that's something we're always improving on. The way we do it right now is we kind of have the self-policing model, right? So people can upvote and downvote reviews similar to Reddit, so that adds more weight to it. We also have a good ability to then report any errant information, and for myriad of reasons. If profanity gets through our system, anything like that, you can let us know. And also, too, we provide an overall recommendation percentage score, too, so you can see how holistically everyone's been saying this landlord or property manager has been performing. And then we exclude any landlord that signs up on our platform. That email is blocked from being able to post or engage with the front end of our platform and posting reviews. All these things are checks. All these things create like a fuller system. But I think one thing that we're working on, I can say it because it just is what it is. It's what we're calling a WILE score, WIL, where it's going to take into account a lot of things like the time of the review when it was posted, how frequent this renter is, active and posting reviews on our platform. It's going to take into account different data points within the reviews to give you a ubiquitously clean score across all the different properties. So we're working on that every single day. That's our job.
Cool. Thank you, sir. All right, we just got like 1 or 2 more questions. Thank you so much for spitballing and staying on point. Let me see. We have, assuming you don't code, how did you find technical people to bring your vision to life?
Yeah, I don't code. I'm a non-technical non-technical founder at this point. The way I found folks was again that that whole energy and that adage again of your network is your net worth is everything.
Yes.
When weird racist stuff has happened to us from different investment firms or whatever, people in those moments didn't know I knew certain board members. So when that happened in this domain, I called someone on that level, and then that person helped figure out the stuff on this level. Like the network's everything. So when it came to finding initial coders, at the time I was in the ESA, the Entrepreneurial Student Association at Temple. Dude's name was Nick Carabla, shout out to you. And I was initially building with him. The way I met him was I was the VP of marketing in the ESA. I had the idea in my head. I didn't want to share it yet. I was still that person that was nervous. Like if I share it, someone might steal it. And the president of that organization at the time, David Hum, shout out to him, came in the office during my office hours. And I was like, yo, do you happen to know any coders? Because I had this idea and I just pitched him on the idea. And he was like, funny enough, my roommate happens to be a coder. So he introduced us via, I think, text at the time. And we met in Alter Hall under the flags, if anybody from Temple is familiar, from the business school. And I just was like, look, I know the social network had came out recently and that, people were a little bit on edge if you were in tech because, Zuckerberg steals this idea from the Winklevoss twins and looks what he built it into. So I was like, look, I know all that to be true. And I'm going to just take a leap on faith and trust you and ask, and I'm going to pitch you this idea and just let me know if you can build it. I pitched him the idea. Yeah, I can build that. He goes, yeah, that's really interesting that you would just pitch me that. I didn't know if you had an NDA or anything you wanted me to sign, but no, I could build that. And so it was funny that we first started out in a contractual, just like as contractors, that relationship. Started working together and building the business together. Equity owner and all kinds of things. But for me, I love I love starting out with like the contractor role first because you get to see over 3 months, whatever the period of time is, how this person works with you, how you work with them, and then you can make a decision to bring them on part-time, full-time, whatever your thing is. So that's how I initially found the first coder. And since it's all been networks, like going to events, speaking, saying that we're literally hiring for engineers. Okay, engineers raise their hand. People come up to you. Angelique, she's a young coder on our team now. Her professor, I did a podcast series with General Assembly this past summer. Her professor from Ohio State was listening in. His student, Angelique, had an idea about creating like this Rate My Landlord thing at Ohio State. And he goes, yo, Ange, you got to talk to this founder. He just pitched this concept on General Assembly and his podcast. She reached out to us, or he made the connection. She's now on our team. Like I was on the Pitch podcast, which is like Shark Tank, but for podcasts this past March. We were like the COVID episode. And in pitching, I was getting grilled at one point for not having any data scientists on the team. There's no data scientists. And dude, John Baker reached out like, yo, I'm a data scientist. Like I do this. I'm interested in opportunity. He's on our team now. He's the head of data science now at our team. And we're bringing another data scientist to work with him, right? Like that's how this stuff works. You got to get out there. You got to network. You got to talk to people and the right people find you. That also are vision from a vision perspective aligned. Because remember, by the time John or an Ange is hearing any vocal stuff coming out of my mouth, when they're reaching out, they're not just hearing this is a position that's available. They're hearing the whole story and saying, I like this story. I want to be a part of that story.
Factual. All right. How do you find a mentor with the time and willingness to mentor someone they don't know?
You know, you've got to be consistent. You got to be bullish. Like the guy I'm referencing raised over 30 million for his startups. His name is Eric Joshua. Like young white Jewish dude. He's always wanted to work with Black founders to get equity in the space, build big companies. And the way that relationship even started, shout out to Nena Ugomo, who started the Student Dream, and she was the first person to ever ask me to speak in New York City. So I go to the event. I'm on a panel with who would turn out to be, this is Jewel Burks, founder of Parpic, sells it to Amazon. Now she's like head of Google startups. Now she has her own investment firm, Collaboration Capital. Eric Joshua was on that panel as well. Like, we had a fire panel, and I'm just like, I didn't know them. I'm just talking about what I talk about. And Eric at the end of it comes up to me and is like, yo, look, I really like what you're building. I'd love to talk to you more about it. I said, cool. Like, this dude knows what he's talking about. He made some money, whatever. So I reach out to him. I get his email. I reach out to him. No response. Reach out to him again, kind of polite, like, hey, just bump things up. No response. Reach out to him again like a month later. Still no response. Cool. Try him again the following year. Still no response. We end up pitching at this Fordham pitch competition, and we won it. And Eric happens to be the judge at that competition. Remember, I said he lived in the Bronx. So it's like, that, to me, that's how God would have it, right? Like, I don't even think he's affiliated with Fordham directly. Like, I think he's a Brown student, right? Like, but he ends up being the judge of this competition. And through that, he goes, my bad, I dropped the ball on that. I know you reached out. Let's actually get coffee, talk about this. We do that. He's impressed. That's how we start the Tuesday and Thursday meetings. That will go on for 4 months. Now he's on our board, right? Like, so like persistence, like keep reminding them, yo, I'm still here. Yo, I'm still here. Update them. Yo, last year I had five users yesterday. Today I got 10. Tomorrow, tomorrow I'm gonna get 50. Like, show them the progress. And then by the sheer nature of us just being in it, who else could construct us pitching there and Eric being there and then that relationship building from there, right? Like, so that's how you got to do it. Be consistent, be persistent in your outreach, and then give them times. Hey, does Thursday, July 7th work for you at 3 p.m., 5 p.m., or whatever, right? If you say, hey, let me know when you're free, nobody's free. You'll fill it up with anything else to get out of a meeting. So give them times. It focuses their attention on those specific times, and it forces them also to reply to you. If none of those work, they will then tell you, hey, none of these times work, but what does work for me is 2 p.m. on July 9th, because they see how you move in telling them how to look at the time. So keep that in mind as you're looking to create those relationships and build those mentor-mentee relationships.
Write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down some more, y'all. Let people know dates and times, because everyone's time is important. If you could just put a block of 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever the case may be, you'll probably end up on the phone for an hour if you're lucky, if you need that. My last question to take some words out of your mouth is, how would you like to feel in 7 years?
That's a good one. Happy first and foremost. Like I will be happy in 7 years. That to me is numero uno. Like, I gotta be right up here. I gotta feel right in here. I also want to feel like I'm creating impact in this world. So I think what we're doing is just scratching the surface. Like, if we're right, and I'm gonna say when we're right about how we're building out WYL, like, we're going to change the housing industry forever. I want to feel what that feels like. I want to know what Mark Zuckerberg feels like. Mind you, I don't agree with that, everything Facebook is doing, but shout out to Facebook people, because they got some good people there. But his platform has changed the world. Like, we can agree to that, right? We can agree that Netflix has changed so much, right? It's in our culture now. Netflix and chill. Like, I want to be a cultural colloquialism. Like, how do we get there? How can WIL be that? Like, so if I can feel those things, feel like I'm creating impact, feel like I'm happy, feel like my family and my people are supported, are loved, and are nourished, and they know they're getting that from me and vice versa, then I'm good.
Amen. Well, say a couple last words for the people, and thank you so much for taking your time out to speak to us today. Looking forward to see your success, man.
Awesome. I appreciate that. You know, my words will be quick, be short, because I know you guys have heard me ramble all day. So all I'm going to say to you is this year has obviously been difficult. It's obviously been different. I don't know the scope of everything everyone on this, this call has felt or what they've gone through, but I do know that we're still here. And that is the biggest blessing. Like if you're logged in today, that is a massive blessing. And so take that, let that be what you're grateful for on this day. Enjoy your holidays, enjoy it with the people you love, enjoy it unto self if you have to, out of safety, whatever it is, find that catharsis, find that peace, and let's kick ass in 2021 because we all we got.
Amen, Chief. All right. Have a good one.
Take care, y'all.
Take care.